Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Good morning.
My name is Liz Bone. I work for the town as the recycling coordinator, and I am also a beekeeper as a hobby. During the year, I go to the middle school a couple times a year, and I talk about beekeeping and recycling because I think both things are very important to our lives. I got into beekeeping about 8 years ago. Has anybody been to the Big E before? Right? So if you ever go to the Farmerama, that building with all the animals in it and the baby pigs, there's a group called the Hampden County Beekeepers Association, and we have a booth there, and they sell honey there. They also educate people. They have like a hive in a little box so you can see the bees and try to find the queen. And so they had sign up there, and so I signed myself and my dad up. However, it started at 7 o'clock at night, and so a little late for him. So I just kept with it. At my house right now I have 3 hives. Each hive has a queen, worker bees, and drones. So I'm going to go through my presentation, and afterwards you can ask questions, and I have some equipment that I brought that you can come up and look at. I brought a little bit of honey, so test with a little taste test with a toothpick. And then I do sell honey. Right now I don't have a great big supply of it just because it's the season, their winter season or whatever. They haven't started making honey yet. Usually you get honey about June and October. So in a hive, oh yeah, that's good. In a hive there are 3 types of bees, basically. So the queen bee has a very long body. She's probably about 1 inch long. And there's a picture of her right up there in the middle. She has that white dot on her, and that is put on by a beekeeper because if you think about it, in a hive there could be up to 80,000 bees. Wow. So if you need to find your queen, and it is very, very hard to do so. So each color that is put on the bee signifies the year that they were born, because queens usually last for 3 to 5 years. So if the white dot, that might meant that she was born in 2022. So you kind of know how long she has left. The other bees in the hive, we have the worker bee. She's a female. She is the most important bee in the hive, well, besides the queen, but she does all the work, and I'll go through all of her jobs. She's a little bit shorter and a little bit smaller eyes. Worker bees live only 6 weeks. Wow. And that's because she just works herself to death. At the end of her life, her wings are basically weathered away, and just from working so hard for those 6 weeks. Wow. This is a drone bee, the male bee in the hive. They're chubbier, fuzzier. They've got really big eyes. They do not have a stinger, so you could pick one up and be absolutely fine. A drone's only job in existence is to mate with a queen. Otherwise, when they're in the hive, they just eat and walk around. They don't do anything. A queen bee has a stinger, and it is a straight stinger. So if anybody has ever been stung by a yellow jacket or a wasp, and sometimes you get stung repeatedly, that's because their stinger is straight. So it means that they can keep stinging you, and they won't. Nothing will happen to them. And that's the same thing for the queen. However, queens mainly live in the hive, and they rarely come out after they mate, so it's very, very unlikely that you would get stung by a queen. The worker female has a barbed stinger, so that means it's jagged. So if she stings you, when she tries to leave, it will pull out of her body and she'll die. So workers really, or female bees, they really are not purposely trying to sting you, because they'll die. So it's really a defense mechanism. So you can see the differences in sizes. And in a hive, you can definitely tell where the drones are compared to the workers. And here's a little picture. Those are all workers around the queen. So these are the jobs that a worker bee has. When they first come out of their cell, they get to take care of the brood around them. So the term brood means the eggs and the larva that is in a frame of wax. And so I'll refer to a brood frame later on, so if you remember that. When they get a little bit older, they feed the older larva. A little bit older, they feed the youngest larva. Days 12 to 17, their bodies start producing wax, and that's something that they have internally an ability to do. They start carrying the food around and feeding and like passing food from one bee to another. They start building combs and undertaking duties. So as I said, the worker bees, a lot of them die from working so hard, and their job is to pull them out of the hive and throw them outside. And you'll actually see that. Day 18, then they're starting to be the guard. So a lot of times in the late summer when the flowers have already bloomed and they're kind of, there's not a lot of pollen and nectar left in them, the other insects like wasps, bumblebees will try to go in, or other beehives will try to go into a hive and steal their resources because they're getting ready for the winter. So they do need some guards, and they actually kind of like sit on the edge of the hive and like look very mean. And then at the end of their lives, then they get to start flying out of the hive, collecting nectar and pollen and water and bringing it back to the hive. So this is a little bit of a picture of the life cycle. So the queen lays an egg in one of the cells, and then the worker bees feed it up until larva stage, and then when it becomes a pupa, they cover the cell with like a wax capping on the top, and then they emerge. A worker emerges 21 days. A queen takes 16 days to come out from egg to coming out of the cell, and the drone is 24 days, just because it's bigger. So here's a picture. This is brood, like I said. And you can see here that the wax, the little circles, that's ones that have been capped. And you can see that they're kind of flat. And here, they are, they're like bumpier. You see, they're kind of like bubbles. And those are cells with drone in them, males in them. So when you're looking at a frame, you can see where the drones have been laid, and you can see where the workers have been laid. The queen, when she's laying the eggs, can decide to release a fertilized egg or an unfertilized egg, and that's how she can actually make a pattern on the frame. This is a queen cell. Now, queen cells have to be much bigger because I said they're about 1 inch long, and they kind of look like a peanut shell, right? And when they're done, when they have, after their 16 days, they chew themselves out of the bottom. So there's only 2 reasons or 2 ways for a queen to be born. So the first way is a careless beekeeper has accidentally crushed the queen, and then the hive will have no queen. I've done this many times before, and I did it actually again last summer. So what happens is the worker bees will have to, and the queen gives off a pheromone, like a scent, and so the worker bees will notice that the queen is not giving off that scent anymore. So what they have to do is they have to go around all the hive and find eggs that are less than 3 days old.
Is that all you need?
So when they're less than 3 days old, those can be made into queens. So they will make a couple of them. So you'll find in the hive a couple of these peanut shapes, just as an insurance policy. If they use a 4-day-old one, it's probably not going to be developed into a good queen. So that's why they want to have the youngest eggs possible. And the way that a queen is made is they are fed royal jelly, which is a protein-rich food that the bees make for the whole time that they're in the cell. Now, all bees are fed that royal jelly, but worker bees and drones are only fed that like for the first 3 days, but the queen is fed it the whole time, and that's what makes her become a queen. It makes her develop ovaries. Ooh. Well, let me go back a little bit. So the other way a queen is made is if there's a swarm. And sometimes in a hive, and I've had this happen a lot of times, the queen feels that she is a little bit too crowded in the hive. She has lots and lots of bees. There's really no place for her to lay eggs. So she will decide to leave the hive and start a new hive. And how she does that is she sends out a pheromone, again, a signal to her bees that she's going to leave. She stops eating because when she's full of food, she's a little bit too heavy to fly. So she'll stop eating. She'll send the signal to the bees that she's going to leave. And half the bees collect some of the food that's in the hive, about half the amount of food and the honey. And when she decides to leave, all of them, the half of them, of the hive with the queen will leave the hive and find a spot nearby in a tree to just congregate until they can find a new place to live. So when that happens, the bees that are left in the hive will then again have to find young eggs to make into those queen cells again. So this is a little video. This is a beekeeper. And as I said, this has happened to me a couple times before, I think 6 times already. So once the queen decides to leave the hive to start a new colony, they go up in the air and it's like 40,000 bees. It is so loud, it's like a helicopter is outside. You'll see them all over the place, and you would definitely know if there is a swarm. In my case, they have almost every time landed on a nearby tree. So I'm able to, if you see this is a swarm that landed in a nearby tree. What I've been able to do is cut the branch and then put a box underneath and to catch the bees. And then I have to put them in a new hive, so like start a 4th hive. The thing is that if I cut the branch here and they fell into the box, but let's say the queen's like still up here and that little part didn't fall in, all the bees would still know that the queen is up there. So they would go from the box back up to the tree to encompass her again, because they are protecting her in that swarm. She's in the middle there. They're keeping her warm and they're feeding her. Okay.
Now this cloud of bees is what we call a swarm of honeybees.
And here is what that swarm looks like once it's left the colony. Inside of this huge cluster of honeybees is the queen, typically the old queen, being protected by the rest of the bees. And on the outside, bees are coming and going, looking for new home sites. It might take a day or two for them to find one. They go out, look for places, come back, and they actually do a waggle dance to report to the rest of these bees where the location they found was and how good it was. Eventually, more will go check out that location, and when they agree, all at once, this huge cluster of bees will take flight and go move into that new home site. And once that's established, then you have 2 colonies. This is how the colony reproduces on a colony level. Wow.
So you lose all those bees?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
So when that happens, you're right, you lose half the amount of bees and half the resources, and then because the queen left, they have to make the new queen, and that takes 16 days, and then it will take a couple more days for her to mature and to go outside and mate, and then it will take a couple more days for her to have enough or to develop the eggs to lay. So there's a good chunk of time, like at least a month before she can start laying eggs again. So that kind of brings back your hive back a little for timing, because if she had been laying the whole time, all those bees would be maturing and becoming workers to go out and collect resources. So your honey production for something like that happens, it will be less just because you don't have all those bees in the hive helping. Oh no.
Now this cloud of bees is what?
Sorry. Okay. So this is an example of, let me just quickly say. So when a queen mates, she will go up into the air, releasing a pheromone, and the drones, not from her hive, but from surrounding hives, will go up into the air, and many will mate with her. So she has a lot of diverse types of, species of other types of bees, or not other types of bees, but other types of genetics. And then she'll go back into the hive. All the drones that mate with her will die because they're mating. Let's see, I'm trying to think of a right word. Body parts will be stuck in her, and when they pull away, it will pull out their intestines in their body. So the male drones die that do mate with her. Bees can travel about 9 square miles, so you're getting bees from all over, especially here. There's a lot of beekeepers in this area, not a lot, but like a decent amount, and then plus natural hive, so you're getting a lot of diverse genetics. This is a honey frame. So when the bees collect pollen and nectar, they come back and they produce it with their bodies and put it into the cells. Usually what happens is beekeepers like myself in the hive will put a honey box on top. So in a hive, usually it's a box on the bottom, which is brood, just for brood, a second box on the bottom, or on the top of that, which has a mix of brood and their honey resources. But then we put the extra honey box on top, or maybe even 2, to collect honey just for us, because we want to leave them their own resources so they don't starve during the winter. So up here is a honey box. It's a little bit shorter than the deep brood ones. And this is because when they have honey in them, they are very heavy. That could weigh 40 pounds just carrying that around. And the big brood ones can weigh up to 80 pounds if it's full of honey. And so just for our backs, we like to do the shorter boxes. So bees will put honey into the cells, and it needs to be around 18 and 19% humidity. So if it's too liquidy, they will flap their wings to dry it out like a dehumidifier. And when it's perfect, they put that wax capping on top. This helps keep out like little bugs that try to get in. It helps from, like, as I said, wasps might come in and try to take the honey resources. So they really want to cover it before anything happens to it. This is a pretty decent honey frame. Sometimes they fill out the absolutely whole thing, which is great. Sometimes during the year, if it's been really wet, they won't cap it. They'll just leave it open, hoping that they can take out the moisture themselves, but then sometimes they just don't cap it. So beekeepers can do a a process where they keep the honey in a room with a dehumidifier in it and keep testing the humidity. So when you have a frame like this one with all the wax pretty much covered, and it's time to harvest it, which would be like end of June, July, like I said, that would be the spring honey. And then in the fall honey, it would be around end of September, October. Beekeepers will take the boxes off. They'll bring it inside because bees will smell it, so you don't want to do this outside or you'll be covered with bees. And to get the honey out, you have to take the wax off. So here's just a little video.
I'm up on it.
So he has a hot knife,
Real nice. You take it.
and it's really easy with a hot knife. It's normally not like that if you use something else.
I grab my fancy uncapper here, also known as a fork. Just run it around real quick. Anything that's still got caps on it, knock them off. I know they make true uncappers, special uncappers.
Yeah.
I don't know how they're better than a fork, but I'm sure they are. That's it. So we'll set it down.
That's it.
Oh, that was very good.
Oh, well, I mean, so then what we do is we put it into a honey extractor, and we put the frames vertical, and this on the top, there's ones that hand crank, there's ones with a machine crank, and you just spin it, and so the centrifugal force makes the honey come down to the bottom, and you strain it a couple times to get out, like wings and things like that, and then you can bottle it. One of the things that the guy was saying was there's a couple other ways. I don't have a knife. This is one of my tools. And so I just go like down the frame like that to get the wax off, and then the spikes can do the corners.
Are there no bees in there when you're doing all that?
No, so what I normally do is if I have a honey box and I take it off, I'll have like a big container, and I'll take each frame out, and I'll shake all the bees off back into the hive, and then put it in the container, put the cover on right away. I will definitely have a couple stragglers that are coming into the container and into the house, but that's okay, because I have like a screened-in porch, so it's kind of like outside, but they can't come in. But yeah, you want to get off as many bees as possible, obviously. And also there's something that beekeepers do. There's this chemical scent that you can put in the hive that will draw the bees to go back down. It smells like dog poop. It's so horrible, so I don't use that.
Did you ever get stung?
Lots of times. So the honey has lots of different colors, as you can see. And the reason why this happens is because spring flowers are much lighter color, think apple blossoms, things like that, which produces lighter color honey. The fall flowers, like mums, darker color flowers, make darker honey. The spring honey sometimes is a little bit lighter in flavor, the darker a little bit more floral, but it all depends because it depends where you live. Pretty much if you see a bottle honey and it says it's clover honey or something like that, that's pretty much an assumption, just because if you think about it, if a bee can fly 9 square miles around here, how do you know where they're going? You don't know if they're going to clovers, you don't know if they're going to skunkweed, you don't know if they're going to an apple tree, unless you have, 30 square miles of just clover, then that's the only way you can guarantee that it's only clover honey. So I would just assume that any sort of, honey is a wildflower honey. But that's good, because when you're getting honey from local your local area, any sort of things that you're allergic to. You're basically microdosing yourself with that pollen, so you're treating yourself and getting your body used to that pollen through eating honey. Around here, not so much, but around America, people actually are professional pollinators. And I don't know if you've ever been to Big Y, but there's a guy called Billy C's Honey, right? Billy C is a professional pollinator. So he has hives at home. His hives are in Southwick, but he also has lots and lots of hives that he puts on trucks every year, and he drives to California and Georgia because they have so much farmland and, for example, almond trees and peach trees, they don't have enough bees in those areas. So they need professional pollinators to go with their bees to pollinate all those things. And that's why bees are so important, because they pollinate over a third of our food resources. And if we didn't have bees, then we wouldn't be on the planet. They do a lot of good for humans and for our flowers. So here are some benefits. Bees produce, like I said, 1/3 of the food eaten by Americans. There's lots of different things. They also produce 6 different products. They produce pollen, and honey, royal jelly bee wax, propolis, venom. So propolis, and when you come up, or you can see propolis on my box, it's a mixture of pine tar and honey, and so they use it to seal up the cracks in their hive so no bugs or enemies try to get in. But it also has viral properties, so people take it and they make tinctures with it. Venom has been studied and has been shown to have anti-inflammatory effects. So they're giving it to people with arthritis in their hands. They're, I'm guessing people self-sting themselves, but has become a big study about arthritis. The royal jelly, like I mentioned, that's the milky stuff around the larva there. That's the protein-rich food. The beauty companies have used it in beauty products. Wax is used in gum, lip balm, candles. Wax has been used for thousands of years for candles and things like that. Pollen, as I said, that also has some antibacterial properties, so people also eat that, put that on their cereal sometimes. And honeybees also has a lot of threats. So probably number one is humans, but they also have some animals that try to get into their hives and tear apart the hives. So anybody heard of Winnie the Pooh?
Yes.
Right? So what do they always show him doing?
Putting his hand in the jar.
Honey, right. So bears actually don't go into hives for honey. They go in to eat the eggs because they are protein rich, and eat the larva and eat the bees. So Winnie the Pooh is not really too accurate. Climate change, their habitats are getting, and their forests are getting, taken down, so they don't have places to live, and flowers to take pollen and nectar from. Let's see, pesticides. It's really sad when you can tell if your bees have been around some flowers that have pesticides, because when they die, their tongues stick out. It's really sad. They also have some diseases and also some bugs that really can decimate a hive. This one is a wax moth. They leave like a spidery web across the frames. They're really gross. One of the biggest ones is the varroa mite. And they're little, very tiny, like size of a poppy seed, and they attach themselves to the bees, and they are basically a parasite. But besides weakening them by taking their blood, they're also giving them diseases. So that has, wiped a lot of hives out. I have to test the bees every few months to see if what their mite count is. And you can tell because if your hive, you can notice that there's not as many bees in the hive. That gives you a clue that something's going on, and this probably has to do with the mites. The wax moth and the small hive beetle, they're just kind of nuisances, but they crawl around and they go into the cells and they lay eggs, and then it can ruin your honey crop basically your honey crop, just because it has all that larvae and it's gross. Some diseases, there's the American foul brood. That is a very serious disease. If your bees have that, you have to torch your hive and you have to burn all of your equipment. So every single hive part that you have, your gloves, everything like that, you have to burn because it's so infectious. There's a European foul brood, which is not as bad, but still you need to give your hive antibiotics to treat them, and it pretty much decimates the hive. There's funguses, there's even another parasite. There's a mite that lives in the breathing tube of the bee. And so they have a lot of issues, let's say. So I encourage you, if you have a yard, to plant some of these flowers and trees, just because the more flowers, the more honey and bee colonies there will be. And of course there are really pretty flowers and trees anyway, so why wouldn't you want to have those in your yard? And I would like to show you my equipment, but if you have any questions, please let me know.
How do you give bees antibiotics?
You either, there's like strips that you put in there, and they'll, when they walk across it to go around their hive, they'll pick up the antibiotics. And they clean themselves a lot, so then they'll digest it. Sorry, you had your question.
So I got honey from India, and I don't know if it's safe to consume it.
From India?
Yeah.
Oh, is it the Manuka one?
I don't know. My daughter-in-law's from India. So.
Oh, probably. I would just say, I know that if you get honey from like Costco or something like that, that they've shown that is actually colored corn syrup. So it's not really honey, or it might be a little bit of honey and corn syrup. So you just buying local stuff's better. But I'm sure from India it'll be okay.
So is all honey safe? How do you know?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, if it's honey, yes. Yeah. Yes.
How many baby bees can a queen produce?
Oh, good question. I forgot to say. So she lays about 1,000 eggs a day.
Wow, a day.
Yeah. So that's why when she starts feeling crowded, she's going to leave. So you definitely need to, as a beekeeper, need to check the boxes to see if there's enough room for her. Anybody else? Oh, yeah.
Is it true that honey never goes bad?
That's true. Yep. Yep.
What if it turns crystal, though?
That's okay. That's basically, crystallized honey is absolutely fine. All you need to do is just put the jar into like a bucket or something of very warm water, and it will become liquid again. It's just the type of sugars from the flowers which make it crystallize sometimes. And sometimes a lot of my dark stuff definitely gets crystallized where the light stuff really doesn't. So it kind of all depends on where the bees are getting their pollen and nectar from.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can you heat the honey jar in the microwave?
No.
You shouldn't.
Nope.
No, you shouldn't. I think that kills like the antibacterial qualities that it has. So yeah, just pan of warm water, and it will take a while, like a day.
You can't keep it refrigerated though, right?
You can, but you don't need to.
No, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't, unless it's freezing, it shouldn't do anything to the honey.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Are honeybees native to this area, or did they come from somewhere else?
Yeah, they are not native to the area. They're basically all from like Europe area. The bees, the type of bees that I have, I've had Italians, which are the ones that probably first came over from Europe. And I have Carnolians, which are from like a region in Eastern Europe. A lot of the way that certain types of bees, or they're all honeybees, but the regions that they come from give them different qualities. So, for example, Carnolians are very docile. But they don't produce like so much honey, versus Russians are more aggressive, but they do produce a lot of honey. Sometimes they, like I'm sure you've heard of the Africanized killer bee. Again, very aggressive bee, but they probably produce a lot of honey. So it's really your tolerance as a beekeeper of how you want to, like if you want to get stung a lot, if you want to get chased around your yard. I prefer not to do that, so I sacrifice my honey. So anyway, yeah?
So the honeybees, are they, along with all the other bees, because there's always talk about putting in more flowers for pollinators.
Right.
So they all need honey. They all need the flowers. They all need it.
Right, because pollen and nectar are their food sources. So no matter what type of insect, you do want lots of flowers just so they can have the food sources, and then they can pollinate and have those flowers keep growing. Because if they're not pollinated, then they won't reproduce.
Do they get along with each other?
They do, yeah.
They do, so they're okay.
Yeah, I have many pictures of bumblebees and honeybees on the same, flower collecting nectar. Bumblebees actually do produce honey, but just a very tiny, tiny amount. So that's why nobody would ever have them in a hive anyway to collect their honey. Yeah, okay, so I will,
How close are the Africanized bees to the northeast? And they might be migrating over the years.
Yeah, I really don't hear a lot about them. Like randomly, there'll be a case of an aggressive, like not a hive, but a bunch of bees in a tree or something like that, and they assume that they're African bees that have traveled up. But it's very rare. And I don't think anybody would actually have them in a hive as a choice. So I don't think it's really a concern. Yeah. Oh, yep.
So when the queen leaves and you need a new queen, do the worker bees find it, or the drone, or how do you get the new queen to?
So the new queen, so the worker bees will take a very young egg, like under 3 days old, and start feeding it that royal jelly, and that's how it makes a queen. And so what happens is, as I said, they make a lot of them, probably up to 10 of them in the hive. And so whoever emerges first will go around and sting and kill all the other queens that have been made. So there's normally only one queen in the hive. Rarely there is like a mother and a daughter, but that is pretty rare. And if they merge at the same time, let's just say, then they fight to the death.
So the workers know when they need to produce a new queen?
Yes, they know it because the queen gives out a pheromone to say either, I want you to make a new queen because I'm leaving, or there's no pheromone left in the hive, and so they know that they are queenless and then they need to start making a queen. Yeah. So yeah.
I had read that you shouldn't serve honey with metal.
Oh.
Is that true? This was from a beekeeper in Granby, Connecticut.
Oh.
He said, don't serve it with wooden or something plastic.
I don't know. I feel like I've heard that before, but it might just be the taste of metal or something like that with honey. I don't know.
I don't know if it's true, but they said you shouldn't use metal. It affects the antibiotics. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Doesn't sound like that would happen, or otherwise none of us would take antibiotics with a spoon, but I don't know. But I'll look into it with that.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
How long did you study bees?
Well, I went to bee school, and that was 6 weeks.
And that's it?
Yep.
And you knew everything about bees?
No, I didn't.
Right?
I still don't know everything. I still don't know everything about bees, but I had at the Hampden County Beekeepers, they help you with a mentor. So I live in Long Meadow. There's a guy in Long Meadow who's also a beekeeper, and he was a beekeeper for maybe 10 years before I was. So he would come over my house. He still comes over my house, helps me try to find a queen. Sometimes if I couldn't find her, I'd be like, I need a second pair of eyes. He always has the antibiotics that you get when you're trying to treat them for something, you have to get from a vet. But guess what? The vets around here don't really do bees or, like horses or something like that. So it's hard to get the medicine. So he has a connection. So it's really helpful to work with somebody. Like if you're ever interested in becoming a beekeeper yourself, I would definitely say go through a bee school. Don't just watch a YouTube video and think that you're going to be a beekeeper, and get some help. Yeah.
I got a question.
Yeah.
What's the difference between a worker bee and a regular bee that gives the
So the worker bee is the female bee.
yeah.
So they're in the hive, there's a queen who's the female, the mother of all the bees. There's a drone, which is the male bee, and he's only there because he needs to reproduce with a queen. And if they don't reproduce with a queen, then they come back to the hive and just live there rent-free. And then the worker bee is another female bee, the daughter of the queen, and she does all the work in the hive. It cleans the cells, chases off enemies, forages for pollen and nectar, takes care of all the babies, the larvae, the eggs, and then lives about 6 weeks, and then she dies.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so I'll turn the lights back on so you can see the stuff. I don't know, you guys are seated. I could pass along stuff. So first I'll show you. So this is my smoker. So I normally burn paper and pine needles. Because I said the queen and the bees, they communicate by pheromones and also dancing and stuff like that, but the pheromones, so the smoke kind of masks their like alert pheromones, so it kind of calms them down as well, disorients them. I'll really only use it when I have to go into a hive for like a full inspection, which takes probably like an hour, because I'll need to go through each and pull out each frame and like check both sides and look for the queen. So that takes a while. I wear a suit. I actually have a full suit, but this was like an old jacket I had. I have gotten stung through my suit. They love my thighs, don't know why. So I usually wear like 2 pairs of pants and my suit. And gloves also, like if you put your glove on like this, and it kind of like bunches up here with the suit, and then it goes like this, and then they always find a way to like sting you right in your wrist. This is a hive tool. So when in the summer, there's so much propolis and on the frames that they are completely stuck together. So this helps me like pop the frames apart and helps me lift them up. Some of these frames are made better than others. Like some are like screwed here, some are just stapled, and when it is so sticky, sometimes even using the hive tool, it will break this off. So you kind of have to be really careful.
How do you get the honey out of the hives, though?
Well, so for example, let's say this is a honey frame. I'll pull this out of the hive, shake off the bees back into the hive, and then put it into a box with a cover. And then I take this tool, which scrapes the wax off, and then I put it into my extractor, which will spin out the honey. And then I collect it at the bottom and strain it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have to do anything after you get the honey with the frames? Do you have to clean them?
Well, the good thing is that the bees will clean them, clean it up.
You just put it back in?
So I leave the box, the Tupperware box that had the cover. After I spin all the honey out, I will just leave that box out with the frames inside of it, and they'll find it, and then they'll clean up the frames, and they'll look brand new again. They'll take any bit of honey out, any bit of pollen. It's basically like a free-for-all.
Do you eat the
Very
honey?
interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So this frame has been drawn out,
I guess so.
meaning that the bees have used their wax to draw out the wax, so they're the correct size cells for honey. This is an example. This is a wax frame that is made by a person. So what we'll do is it takes bees a while to make wax and to make something like this. So beekeepers will give them a head start by making this like flat piece of wax framing, and you just have it comes in like a sheet, and then you install it into this frame and put it into the hive, and then the bees will draw it out. So eventually it will look like that. You could, not have any sort of framing thing in here, but it would be very, like bees, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but their natural wax is all wonky.
How many frames in a hive?
So they come in all different sizes. So if you are like a regular size, so the brood box would be 10 frames. You can also get them with 8 frames in them. So a little bit smaller and lighter if you have to carry it around, like I said. And then this is a honey box, which is like half the size. A brood box is like double size of this. And so this is just for honey. For whatever reason, the bees do not go up to the honey box and lay eggs. They just normally keep it for honey. They kind of know that that's where they should put their honey, and not, the queen shouldn't go up there. You can also, to make sure the queen doesn't go up there, you can put on this like kind of, it's like a mesh frame in between the boxes, and the bees, the worker bees, can fit through the little holes, but the queen's too big to fit up the hole. So then they only put the honey up there, and the queen can't get up there to lay eggs. So as I said, these take 10 frames, or my boxes do, and then sometimes they have 8 frame ones.
Do you make this thing, or do you buy it?
I normally buy them because it's hard to, if you can see, this one has like a wire and a little nail that you have to take apart if I wanted to do this. But I do have some of these wax frame foundations that I have replaced on some of them that are easier to do. As I said, like this one has this wire contraption and a nail, but then this one, it has the wire, but it only has a staple on the top, so it's a lot easier to get the staple out than the nail. And then, as I said, I brought a little bit of honey to test if you want to come up. It's my darker one. And I brought some toothpicks. So I think that's it, if you have any other questions.
Very good.
Okay.
Very interesting.
All right, good.